Welcome to Real Talk, Real Women, Breaking the Silence Around Abuse. I am Gemma Serenity Gorokov, your host, and today we have an exceptional guest speaker, Jennifer Hotai. Jennifer is the author of Alive and Angry, and it is actually a survivor story and perspective on solving domestic violence. She took on the role to actually think about domestic violence as a societal issue to be solved. Now, we can all argue domestic violence is a personal thing. It happens in the silence and the hidden homes. It happens in front of everybody, but hidden. It happens, you may be someone who experienced it. That's a possibility because so many people actually have experienced domestic violence, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, or things like that. Now, Jennifer, she comes with something different. Her story, I read it because it's written in here, I read it, and she comes with a different perspective. All the episodes you have listened so far on this podcast are nothing of the type of story she comes up with. Sorry. Okay, so Jennifer, let's get started with you. Can you please introduce yourself with an emphasis on the kind of abuse you overcame in your life, who you are, what you do, how you help the people now? And then we're going to dive into your story a little bit more.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Gemma. My name is Jennifer Hotai, the author of Alive and Angry. I am based out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am a survivor of a 10-year, very violent, abusive relationship. I was characterized by a lot of sadistic abuse, meaning that I was tortured by my abuser physically, mentally, sexually, psychologically, in every way. And I was enduring so much during this time, and I finally escaped 2 years ago. And I got the strength and the healing that I needed to write this book, and I wanted to make sure that as many people as possible are saved from this happening to them, or be able to get the help that they need to recover from any kind of abuse.
And you took on a very, very powerful role by doing that, by bringing together so many resources and really thinking through solving it. And you come with some serious solutions, I must say. So let's start a little bit with your story. Sadistic abuse. What example do you want? Which story would you choose to explain a little bit what is sadistic abuse? We are so used to narcissistic abuse, but sadistic abuse is another version that is pretty bad.
Right. So I want to go in a deep detail on this. And sorry, this might trigger some people, but this is something that a lot of violent domestic violence survivors have gone through. But this is what a narcissistic psychopath does to their victims, which is sleep deprivation. And I want to mention that this has been proven as a form of torture, according to Cleveland Clinic and from the UN. So the UN Committee Against Torture has concluded that prolonged sleep deprivation should be viewed as torture as defined in Article 1 of the UN Torture Convention, as quoted from ccrjustice.org. So what he did specifically was sadistically keep me from going to sleep, or play a game in his sick mind of taunting me to feel like I'm in a safe place to finally go to sleep, that he has given up or is allowing me to go to sleep at certain times by being nice to me and playing that game of, oh, I'm a nice husband, I'm so sorry, and pretend to apologize for his behaviors. As soon as I try to go to sleep and think that it's safe after much convincing, he goes in and attacks me in the bed. whether physically, mentally, usually very auditory, banging noises, turning the TV on to extreme levels, like concert level sounds, where the whole neighborhood could hear it. So I probably suffered some ear damage from that too. Spraying my face with cologne, spitting my face, strangling me, trying to stuff my face with a pillow, kicking me, punching me, slapping me, you name the whole gamut that he did to get me out of bed so that I can sit next to him on the couch and just listen to him ramble nonsense for us tonight when which he was constantly drunk and high. So there's no chance of me ever making any sense or listening. I just had to stay there and act like I'm awake. But eventually that broke down, over time, because my body broke down, my mind broke down, and I couldn't keep myself conscious. So he spent more time torturing me, making sure that I suffered from being able to go to sleep because he did not like that I can go to sleep easily and he can't ever. So he saw that as a threat. He saw that as some kind of commodity that he was very jealous of, and he had to punish me for that. And which I confirmed because he said that, to me. If I can't sleep, then you can't either. So that was something that I had to endure for far too long than I could count how many days, but that broke down my mind.
I cannot imagine that level of torture when you're just like almost sleepwalking because you just want to make believe that you are actually complying, but as he's high on drugs, he has no consciousness, no awareness of anything else than himself, especially during those moments, but probably all the time. Gosh. That is something I mean, it's bad. It's bad.
I don't wish that upon anybody to do that. And this is why it's been used as a tactic to torture prisoners of war. And it really did a number of some damage. You could probably Google this. I won't say it on here, but you can find out how much damage that does to a human being. But
Okay, that's
to have it come from somebody that you trusted, that you felt like, oh, they're the love of my life, they would never harm me. Here they are, literally torturing me. Yeah.
doesn't make sense at all, especially when you go through that. Another kind of story that you have in your book, I remember, that was, how did you get married with that person?
Right. So this might be a bizarre thing for a lot of people to hear, and although this is commonplace for people who don't want to get a big wedding, they just want to get married and have a certificate. So what we needed at the time, was to get a notarized marriage certificate to mail in to for legal purposes to prove that we're married. So, after a long time of, living and being with them and going through ups and downs, he's like, oh, you've been with me so long, and, I want to be married to you. You're worthy to be my wife at this point. And I thought, oh, wow, that's amazing. Things could start to get better in my mind. That's what I thought. So we went to a shipping store in Myrtle Beach and got the person behind the desk to notarize this. We first tried a bank, but they didn't have the right person there to do it, or they couldn't do it for some reason. But that's why we went to that shipping store and we got it notarized, and then mailed it off, and that's how you can get married in the US. And after that, things did not didn't get better, of course, spoiler alert, as we all know. They only got worse. But in reflection to that, he wanted to get married to me so he can gain that power over me and have that solidify that he can have ownership and of all of any of my possessions and property, etc., and claim anything that I accomplish as his, etc. So that was his end game to get out of that.
Honestly, it is mind-blowing that marriage and being together can be twisted and distorted that much. And that as a victim of domestic violence, you see it or we see it as, wow, it's going to get better. Okay, so actually he loves me. Yeah, does he? Like, really? Really?
You all know
No.
the
Owns
truth.
you, he owns you, and he will use and abuse you to your end or his end or whatever end, but to the bitter end. Wow. Honestly, it was difficult, of course, because it's always difficult to read through the ups and downs and uh, and the stories of domestic violence survivors when they're able to actually put words on it and share the extent of the problem. Um, it's always hard. However, I must say that it is written in a way that is compelling to not drop the book until the end of the story. So it's something that actually hook you because you want to know, okay, what is the unfolding? How did you get out? Which is my question for now. How did you get out?
Right. So of course it never just takes or one time to get out. As we all know, it takes at least 6 or 7 times for victims to finally leave an abusive relationship. First time I tried to leave, I had no idea what to do. I didn't have any safety plan exit. I just loaded up my car and got out, and he caught me. And then he reeled me back in with his words, and that made me feel like nothing, and that sucked me back in. And that was like the first several years into the relationship. But eventually, over time, was the torture, was the sleep deprivation, physical abuse, everything mental. My mind broke down to a point where first it started as a low voice, get out, get out, get out. And then it got louder and louder. And then what really started to scare it was the fear that got in my mind. And then the inner instincts started to be loud enough to say that he's going to kill you. There's just no ifs, ands, about it. It's just a get out or you're going to die in a horrible way. That instinct was so loud at that last night that I was with him, April 20th, 2022. At that night, I was so broken down at that point, and I wanted to just my body was on its own motion, just heading out towards the exit, wherever it was, door, garage. I went to the garage door. He, for some reason, was very fast and got ahead of me, opened up and opened the door, and he said, if you leave, you can never come back. I didn't say anything to him. I just ran out the garage door as it was rising up and sprinted down the neighborhood street and called 911 on there, and was telling me that was the first time I ever uttered out the words that I am being abused by my husband. He's been hurting me and etc., and that he's a threat to me and also to himself. And then I got to a safe place in my neighborhood community center, and I just sat there and waited for the police dispatch to kind of take me aside, hear my side of the story, and then they had a separate dispatch go to the house so that I was in the separate area. So it was well done from the Myrtle Beach Police Department. They were able to handle that well. Where I was far away, they had a lot of protection for me on that side, and then a large number of rather large sized men who were very armed to the teeth that went in there and got him. I didn't see him get out. I just know they just told me a summary of what they did. They took him out of the car, and then all I saw was the car drive away. And that was the night that I escaped. That is my safe escape, and that's the day that I celebrate every year. That I kind of value more than my birthday, because that's the day that I managed to choose myself and escape, and my instincts finally saved myself from a horrible death from a very sadistic person.
We have a good news ending not very long after that, because it's only 2 years or 3 years that this separation happened. Is it right that this person actually died in his own hands?
I have to say so. I think it's a lot of people can call it karma, and I believe that. He was a very self-destructive person. Um, and he was harming other people. I think I mentioned in my book that he did attack people or assaulted strangers just because he wanted somebody to fight. This did not get recorded by the police. I tried to tell them, but they couldn't do anything about it because they don't know their names or, where it was located. But I know because he comes home with bloody knuckles and a panic look in his face that he might have killed somebody for it. So he is a danger. He was a danger to society. He was definitely a danger to me. And if he lived miraculously, he it would have required him to be completely detoxed from alcohol, which was impossible at that point. He would have to be an inpatient at a rehabilitation center, which he absolutely scoffed at and refused, with chemical, um, you know, uh, kind of treatments to make that happen. It would have been very nigh on impossible for him to not, kill himself at that point. He was so far gone. But if he had survived, then he would have continued to haunt me physically, to torture me and look for me, hunt me down in some way, because he is that, you know, unbalanced and psychopathic person to seek revenge on somebody. And he did promise that if I did call the police, he would go and torture me, then kill me. So I had to find my escape, and that's when I escaped, to my sisters and stayed away for a while to let my mind process and heal for a while before I returned home. But without that and without getting a protective order which is super important to get first, there would have been zero protection from him existing. But I'm glad he was able to just pass on and remove himself from this world, and not cause further anguish to me and anybody else.
Yes, indeed. That is close to the end of your story in this book, when you talk about what happened to you. And then all of that is only a third of the book. We have then an entire 2 or more, no, more. We have actually 7 section total. First section being the story. 7 section total that depict your plan to end domestic violence. And you really thought about multiple layered solution. I'm going to say that it's all here. You are available to really talk more about solutions. So how do people reach out to you? So Jennifer Hotai, that's the first thing. We have your name. How do people reach out to you directly to develop more of the plan, to do more? They can get the book, that's for sure. What else?
So first, the best way to message me is through LinkedIn. So you can just look up my name, Jennifer Hotai, and I'm the only person with that name. So you should be able to connect with me and explain. If you can leave a little note about the book, then it'll be easier to connect. And then we can exchange contact information, but you can find my information also on Amazon, and be able to get different versions of the book and find some more information about it there. But yes, it explains so much that we do not have time to cover it in this session, but it is a way to finally look at it from a very critical analytical standpoint, where I felt like it has not been done before. And on top of it, a resource for people to actually get help, from a safe escape plan to links, QR codes, phone numbers, to hotlines, to not just the US, but many different countries around the world, no matter what you are exactly. That is what we need. And that's what I felt like I needed when I was that first day of getting out from the relationship. Let's see, everyone feels the same way. Now what? All I have is this piece of paper with some phone numbers that may or may not have somebody at the end to answer your call. And so this is actually a put together, compilation from people, different organizations, different stories, not just mine. I also got letters from women around the world that tell their stories too in a very raw and detailed way. And if anything comes out of this, it should save a life. Once you're done reading this, pass it on to someone that might need this from you, or hand it off to a community center where you think somebody could find a safe place to read a resource book like this.
Exactly. And again, the name of the book is Alive and Angry. And the first part of it is, hey, you have the right to be angry because what happened, gosh, should have never happened. So now let's dive in. And now we go into the stories and the difference and how it all plays out and how to solve it. So it's pretty amazing, I must say. Jennifer, I'm blown away by how you already, in 2 years only, how you already turned your story into a stepping stone and a guiding light for others. You already are doing that. Are you organizing, I don't know, speaking engagements? What more than the book are you doing right now?
Right now I'm just promoting this guerrilla style on social media, telling friends about it. But I almost always am open if anyone has any speaking engagements related to DV or women empowerment, to explain that this is the book that we need to share and pass on to as many people as possible. I'm always looking for that outlet to get as much reach as possible, to make sure people have this or donate these books to organizations, to have survivors read this and help them along with their healing journey. Anytime I can speak to people like you, Gemma, any podcasters, any people who are in the community doing good and helping others heal too, is another thing that I'm always looking and starting to do.
It's happening. That's pretty amazing. All right. So thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you for recording this episode with me right here, right now. And we are going to make the world a better place together. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Gemma.